Under the wide stars of the galaxy, Daniel Carter carried with him the hope of peace, the weight of his people's dreams, and the faith that words could stop wars where weapons could not. He was tall, with calm blue eyes and a steady voice that, many said, could calm storms. The United Earth Assembly had chosen him because he believed that even enemies could learn to shake hands. He stepped out of his shuttle onto the shining platform of the Dravari capital city, his heart filled with hope, not fear. The city was grand. Built from silver towers and glowing bridges that stretched into the sky, the air was sharp with the smell of burning metal, a strange scent for a place that claimed to welcome guests. Daniel walked with 2 aides behind him and a few Dravari guards at his side. The aliens were tall, their skin dark and scaled, their yellow eyes always watching. With hunger, they guided him toward the Great Square, a place that could hold millions. Daniel did not know that the entire Dravari public had been ordered to gather there. The steps echoed under his boots as he walked forward, his eyes lifted to the massive banners stretched above the square. Painted with Dravari runes, he thought they were symbols of diplomacy. But they were not. They were marks of blood, war, and conquest. Still, Daniel kept walking, his heart steady, his mission clear, to speak for Earth. When he reached the center platform, he raised his hand to speak. His translator hummed softly at his belt, ready to turn his words into the Dravari tongue. The crowd fell silent, millions of glowing eyes fixed on him. For a single moment, the universe seemed to wait. "I come with open hands." Daniel began, his voice steady. "Humanity wishes for peace, for trade, for friendship. Let us not walk into darkness, but into light together." His words carried across the square, echoing against the towers, but then a sound cut the silence, sharp, cruel laugh. From the raised throne at the far end of the square, High Chancellor Drakkar stood, his scales glowing with red light. He was massive, even for his kind, towering over all others. His voice boomed like thunder. "Weak words from a weak species," he hissed. "Do you think the Dravari bow to soft tongues? Do you think fire is tamed by whispers?" The crowd erupted in a roar, not of support, but of hunger for blood. Daniel's aides looked around in fear, but the guards shoved them back. Drakkar raised his clawed hand, and the banners above the square burst into flame. The smell of smoke filled the air. The Chancellor's voice thundered again. "Let the galaxy see what becomes of those who dare to beg the Dravari for mercy." Daniel felt a chill run through his veins. He realized, too late, that this was no meeting of peace. It was a trap. The Dravari had never intended to hear his words. They had brought him here to humiliate, to destroy, to burn a symbol of humanity in front of the entire galaxy. The guards seized him, dragging him toward the massive iron pyre that had been hidden at the center of the square. His aides screamed, struggling, but they were beaten down and forced to their knees. Daniel's heart raced, but he kept his voice steady. "If you do this, you will awaken something you cannot control," he warned. His words were drowned by the roaring of the crowd, chains clamped around his wrists, his ankles binding him against the pyre. He looked out over the endless sea of faces, millions of eyes gleaming in excitement. He felt no hatred, only sorrow. He thought of Earth, of the blue skies, of the oceans that shimmered under the sun. He thought of his wife's smile, of the children who believed in peace. He whispered to himself, "May my death not be in vain." Drakkar raised a torch, its flame burning bright red. He roared, "Let the galaxy watch as the human burns." The torch was thrown, and fire leaped up around Daniel. The flames licked at his clothes, climbed his body. The heat was unbearable, the pain tearing through him. Yet he did not scream. His eyes lifted to the stars above, his voice cracked, but strong humanity will endure. The fire consumed him, his body breaking, but his spirit refusing to bow. The square echoed with cheers from the Dravari. their voices rising like a storm across the galaxy. Broadcasts of the burning spread in every corner. Civilizations watched in silence, some in horror, others in cruel delight, back on Earth. The footage reached the United Earth Assembly within hours, in the Great Chamber. Leaders watched Daniel Carter's last moments, watched him stand tall even as fire took him. The chamber shook with silence. The image of Daniel's final words burned into their hearts. The president stood, her fists trembling, her eyes blazing with fury. "They think we are weak," she said slowly. "They think fire will break us." She turned to the gathered generals and admirals. "But we will show them a fire greater than their own." The room erupted, not in chaos, but in unity. The fleets of Earth, hidden and silent for decades, would rise. Humanity would not beg. Humanity would not kneel. Daniel Carter's death was not the end, was the spark that lit the storm. And somewhere in the ashes of the Dravari Square, the wind carried a whisper no alien could silence. Earth remembers, and Earth will answer. The chamber of the United Earth Assembly was filled with silence. The flickering screen still showed the image of Daniel Carter's final moments, the fire consuming him while he stood with his eyes raised to the stars. No one in the room could look away. They had just watched one of their brightest diplomats murdered before the galaxy. President Laura Kent stood at the center, her hands gripping the edge of the podium so tightly her knuckles turned white. She was not a tall woman, but her presence filled the room. Her voice was steady, but heavy with rage. "They burned him alive," she said, each word sharp. "They thought we would cower. They thought humanity would fall silent. But I tell you, this Earth will answer." The assembly erupted with voices, some calling for restraint, others shouting for vengeance. But when Admiral Marcus Hale stood, the room quieted. He was a man forged in battle, his face lined with scars. "Madam President," he said firmly, "our fleets are ready. For years the galaxy has mocked us, ignored us. They thought we were too young, too weak, too foolish to matter, but the Dravari have lit a fire they cannot put out. Let us unleash what we have built." The words spread like fire through the chamber. For decades, Earth had kept its greatest projects hidden. Warships slept in silence, buried in the oceans, hidden in deep space shipyards around Mars and Europa. Projects that other species dismissed as myths if they even knew of them at all. These ships were not the small patrol craft or trade vessels the galaxy had seen before. They were massive dreadnoughts, engineered with human stubbornness and ingenuity, designed not for show, but for survival and domination. President Kent's gaze swept across the room. "Then it is decided," she declared. "Mobilize the fleets, wake every ship, call every crew. Humanity will not wait for justice to arrive. We'll bring justice for Daniel Carter, for every insult, for every dismissal, for every time they thought us weak. Let Earth rise." Across the solar system, the orders spread like lightning. On the ocean floor of the Pacific, massive domes split open. Salt water surged as colossal hulls rose upward. Engines that had slept for decades roared to life one by one. Terran dreadnoughts broke the surface of the sea, their shadows blotting out the sun. On Mars, hidden dry docks opened, revealing fleets of cruisers and destroyers bristling with weapons. Workers who had sworn oaths of silence cheered as the ships lifted from the red sands. On Europa, icy crust shattered as hangars beneath the frozen seas revealed carriers and troop transports. Entire cities of steel awakened. Admiral Hale stood aboard the Eternal Resolve, a dreadnought older than most human nations but rebuilt to perfection. He looked across the bridge at his officers. "Signal the fleets," he ordered. "Tell them the time has come. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not forgive. We march to war in the homes of Earth." Families watched the news. Mothers held their children close as they saw the giant warships rise from the oceans. Fathers clenched their fists. Soldiers across the planet packed their gear, knowing they were stepping into history. Even civilians who had never held a weapon whispered the same words for Daniel Carter, for Earth. The galaxy, meanwhile, watched with unease. The Dravari celebrated their victory, boasting that the humans would vanish into silence. But reports soon leaked of movements in soul of titanic energy signatures coming from Earth and Mars. Neutral traders whispered in fear. The humans are preparing something in distant star systems. Ambassadors from smaller civilizations debated in hushed tones. Some feared that Earth's retaliation would bring chaos. Others prayed silently that maybe someone would finally stand against the Dravari, deep in orbit above Earth. The first Terran fleet assembled 1,000 ships formed in tight formation. Battleships, cruisers, carriers, destroyers, and, in the center, dreadnoughts whose cannons stretched longer than city blocks. The stars reflected on their hulls, but it was not the cold reflection of peace, it was the glare of vengeance. President Kent stood in the command room of the Earth Defense Headquarters, watching as one by one the fleets reported in. Mars Fleet ready, Europa Fleet ready, Lunar Fleet ready. The holodisplay shimmered with thousands of green lights, each one a warship waiting for her command. Her hand trembled as she touched the console. Then she straightened, her voice carrying across every ship, every station, every soldier. People of Earth, she said, the galaxy thinks of us as weak. But they will learn the truth. They killed our diplomat. They mocked our peace. But they will never mock our fury. Today, we rise together. Today, we answer fire with fire. Cheers erupted across the fleets, across the bases, across the hearts of every human who heard her words. Pilots slammed their fists against the consoles. Crews shouted. Soldiers raised their weapons. It was not just war they were preparing for, it was vengeance. And so the storm gathered. Silent no more. Humanity was ready. The Dravari had awakened the fury of Earth, and soon the galaxy would tremble. The stars above the Orion expanse shimmered, quietly, as though they had no idea a storm was coming. In the middle of that calm void, a fleet of Terran warships drifted forward with purpose. Their engines glowed faintly blue, their hulls gleaming with the fresh paint of war. At the head of the formation was the battleship Iron Valor, a vessel so large that smaller cruisers looked like toys beside it. Captain Ethan Ward stood on the bridge of the Iron Valor. His eyes scanned the massive holly table that displayed the battlefield ahead. He was not a man of many words. His strength came from his calmness under fire. He looked at his officers and said simply, "We make them remember Daniel Carter." Beside him in another part of the fleet, Commander Sofia Martinez prepared the cruiser Starlance. Her ship was smaller, faster, but bristling with advanced weapons. She adjusted her gloves, her voice steady as she addressed her crew. "Today the galaxy watches. We will show them what it means to challenge Earth." The Dravari were not blind. They had seen the sudden stirrings of humanity, and they sent their warships to meet them. 600 vessels of varying size, destroyers, cruisers, and heavy carriers jumped into the expanse. Their fleet filled the black void like a spreading shadow. Their commander sneered across the comes, his scaled face twisted with mockery. "So the humans dare to come to our space," he hissed. "We will break you in minutes and scatter your wreckage for all to see." The humans said nothing. The silence itself was an answer. Captain Ward gave the first command. All ships, spread formation, weapons hot, on the bridge. The crew moved with flawless discipline. The Iron Valor's rail cannons hummed. Massive rounds sliding into place. Plasma torpedo bays lit with angry red light. Laser batteries powered up, filling the ship with a low, threatening hum. The Dravari charged first. Their ships roaring across the void, plasma bolts streaked through. Space, green fire lighting up the darkness. Human shields flared as the first blasts hit, shaking the decks but not breaking them. Then, Earth answered. The Iron Valor's main rail cannon fired. A single round tore through the void at a fraction of light speed. It slammed into a Dravari heavy cruiser, ripping through its shields. As though they were made of paper, the ship erupted in a storm of fire. Chunks of metal scattering like burning meteors. The crew on the Iron Valor cheered. But Captain Ward's voice cut sharp and steady. "Stay focused, there are hundreds more." The Star Lance darted forward, weaving through incoming fire. Sofia Martinez's voice was calm as she gave the order. Torpedoes release. Dozens of red-hot plasma torpedoes streaked across the void. Weaving past enemy defenses, 3 Dravari destroyers lit up like burning stars, their cores melting as their hulls split apart. The galaxy had underestimated Earth's weapons. The Dravari thought of humans as primitives who still used chemical rockets and simple lasers, but Earth had pushed its technology in secret, desperate to survive on a world filled with its own harshness. Their kinetic rail cannons hit harder than anything the galaxy had built. Their plasma torpedoes burned hotter. Their laser arrays were more precise. Humanity had been underestimated for too long. The Dravari commander's confidence cracked as ship after ship fell. He shouted for his fleet to regroup, but the humans pressed harder. The Iron Valor cut through enemy lines, its broadside cannons firing like rolling thunder. The Star Lance hunted from the flanks, striking like a wolf among sheep, and behind them, dozens of Terran destroyers and frigates moved in perfect formation. A wall of fire and steel. Explosions lit the void like 1,000 suns. Each time a Dravari ship burned, the humans pushed forward with greater fury. The space around the expanse was soon filled with wreckage. Burning debris and drifting corpses of alien warships on the Dravari homeworld. The news came in waves of panic. The fleet that had been sent to crush the humans was being annihilated. 600 ships sent with pride were being torn apart by less than 100 Terran warships. At last, the Dravari commander screamed for retreat, his ships scattered, broken, and desperate to flee. But Earth was not merciful. Captain Ward's voice was low and final. No survivors. The Iron Valor unleashed its final barrage, ending the enemy flagship in a storm of fire. When the battle ended, silence returned to the stars. Except for the faint crackle of wreckage drifting in the void, the first strike was over. Humanity had stood face to face with the Dravari's fury. And the humans had not just survived, they had crushed them on every Terran ship. Crews stood and cheered, voices shaking the very walls. The name Daniel Carter was shouted across comes, as if his spirit had flown with them in battle. And across the galaxy, the whispers began. The humans had drawn blood. The humans had shown their true power. And the galaxy realized with a shiver of fear, this was only the beginning. The news of the Orion Expanse slaughter reached every corner of the galaxy like a shockwave. The Dravari had sent 600 warships with laughter and arrogance, but within hours those ships were nothing but burning wrecks. The galaxy had always thought of Earth as a young, fragile world. But now they stared at the impossible truth: humanity was a predator they had never recognized. On Earth, celebrations thundered. But within the United Earth Assembly, there was no joy, only resolve. President Laura Kent stood before her generals, her voice cold as steel. The Dravari will not stop. They will throw their entire weight against us, so we will answer with everything we have. Humanity's survival is no longer enough. Fury will reshape this galaxy. Admiral Marcus Hale nodded, his scarred face grim. Mars fleet reports ready. Europa fleet is fueled and armed. Lunar yards have launched the carriers. The dreadnoughts are moving into position. He looked across the war table, his voice steady. When the Dravari send their armada, We will meet them with Earth's wrath. The Dravari did not wait long. Furious and humiliated, they called their banners. Tens of thousands of ships gathered into their armada, their fleets stretching. Across the stars in an endless wall of firepower, their leaders snarled that humanity would be erased. Their fleets launched like a tide of darkness, but humanity was ready, in orbit around Earth. The colossal dreadnought Eternal Resolve led the first fleet. Her cannons stretched longer than skyscrapers, her engines glowing with a blue-white fury. Nearby, the dreadnought Liberty's Flame stood ready, a ship whose broadside carried enough fire to shatter entire fleets. Behind them, carriers opened their bays, releasing squadrons of fighters sleek. Angular machines built for speed and destruction, destroyers and cruisers formed protective walls. Their formation perfect, their unity unbreakable. Captain Ethan Ward stood on the Iron Valor's bridge, his eyes fixed on the incoming Dravari swarm. "They come with numbers," he said quietly. "We will answer with precision." His crew nodded, their hands steady on their stations. The ship's weapons hummed with life, rail cannons glowing, plasma torpedoes armed. Commander Sofia Martinez aboard the Starlance adjusted her comms. Her voice calm but sharp. "The galaxy is watching again. Let's show them Earth doesn't strike once and hide. We strike again and again, until our enemies are ash." The battle began when the Dravari armada poured into Sol's outer rim. Their ships lit up the void with green plasma fire. The darkness became a storm of light. Human shields flared under the assault. But the Terran fleet held the line. Then the dreadnoughts fired. The Eternal Resolve unleashed its full broadside, rail slugs ripping through enemy ships like thunderbolts. Dozens of Dravari cruisers exploded at once, their burning wrecks colliding into each other. The Liberty's Flame followed, its torpedo launchers vomiting streams of fire that tore apart carriers and battleships in violent bursts. Fighters screamed through the chaos, human pilots diving between massive alien hulls. Their guns blazing, they darted like hawks among flocks, cutting down enemy bombers before they could touch the human carriers in one daring maneuver. A squadron flew straight through the flaming wreck of a Dravari destroyer, merging like ghosts to unleash missiles on two more targets. Captain Ethan Ward stood on the Iron Valor's bridge, Atiza, eyes fixed on the incoming Dravari swarm. "They come with numbers," he said quietly. "We will answer with precision." His crew nodded, their hands steady on their stations. The ship's weapons hummed with life, rail cannons glowing, plasma torpedoes armed. Commander Sofia Martinez aboard the Starlance adjusted her comms, her voice calm but sharp. "The galaxy is watching again. Let's show them Earth doesn't strike once and hide. We strike again and again, until our enemies are ash." The battle began when the Dravari armada poured into Sol's outer rim. Their ships lit up the void with green plasma fire. The darkness became a storm of light. Human shields flared under the assault. But the Terran fleet held the line. Then the dreadnoughts fired. The Eternal Resolve unleashed its full broadside, rail slugs ripping through enemy ships like thunderbolts. Dozens of Dravari cruisers exploded at once, their burning wrecks colliding into each other. The Liberty's Flame followed, its torpedo launchers vomiting streams of fire that tore apart carriers and battleships in violent bursts. Fighters screamed through the chaos, human pilots diving between massive alien hulls. Their guns blazing, they darted like hawks among flocks, cutting down enemy bombers before they could touch the human carriers in one daring maneuver. A squadron flew straight through the flaming wreck of a Dravari destroyer, emerging like ghosts to unleash missiles on two more targets. The Orion Expanse and the Sol Rim were only the beginning. Humanity did not stop after shattering the Dravari armada. Instead, the Terran fleet spread outward, like wildfire carried by a raging wind. Every jump brought them deeper into enemy space. and every battle left behind burning wreckage that drifted like silent tombs among the stars. Captain Ethan Ward stood at the command table of the Iron Valor, watching the glowing map of Dravari territory. Entire sectors pulsed red, each one marked for a strike. He pressed his palm against the console, his voice steady. "We will not wait for them to recover. We take the fight to their worlds." The Star Lens under Commander Sofia Martinez joined the spearhead. Smaller and faster than the massive dreadnoughts, her ship was built for raids. For slipping past enemy defenses and striking where it hurt most, Sofia knew the risk, but her voice carried no hesitation. "We burn their pride, we burn their strongholds, and when they look up from their broken cities, they will see Terran banners in the sky." The first target was Keller Prime, a fortress world at the heart of the Dravari Alliance. Its planetary shields had never been breached in centuries of war. Armies from a dozen alien nations had tried and failed, but when the Terran fleet arrived, the defenders felt something they had never known before: fear. The Iron Valor opened the battle, its rail cannons hammering the planetary shield. Each impact was like thunder rolling across the atmosphere. The shield shimmered, cracked, and finally shattered in a burst of light. Terran cruisers poured fire into the defensive batteries, silencing them one by one. Dropships filled with Terran Marines screamed down through the smoke-filled skies. They hit the ground like lightning, their boots pounding across the black soil of Keller Prime. Plasma rifles blazed. Dravari soldiers fell. Their roars of arrogance turned to screams of panic. The Terran Marines moved with brutal precision, not as conquerors, but as avengers. Each soldier carried Daniel Carter's memory in their hearts. From orbit, Commander Martinez's Star Lance fired torpedoes into the Dravari shipyards. The explosions lit the night sky so brightly that civilians on the surface thought the stars themselves were falling. Sofia's voice echoed across her bridge, calm but fierce. "Mark this night, the humans came, and nothing was left the same." The galaxy held its breath for centuries. The Dravari Alliance had been untouchable, their fortress worlds unbroken, their fleets supreme. Now their heartland burned, and their enemies, once too afraid to raise a hand, watched with wide eyes. On neutral worlds, whispers spread like fire. Traders told stories of Terran dreadnoughts that split through entire fleets, of human soldiers who marched into alien cities and planted banners over enemy fortresses. Civilians repeated the same phrase again and again: "Do not awaken the fury of Earth." But the Terran campaign did not stop at Keller Prime. Human fleets moved on, world by world. Dravari colonies fell one after another, each planet defended with pride, and each one burned under the relentless hammer of Earth's warships. Carriers unleashed endless waves of fighters, destroyers cut apart retreating fleets, and dreadnoughts shattered strongholds that had stood for centuries. Captain Ward walked the bridge as reports poured in. He read them silently. Each one another victory, each one another grave. "They are learning," he murmured. "But too late, they thought us weak. Now they will never forget what we are." The Dravari responded with desperation, calling upon every ally, every mercenary fleet they could hire. Armies and ships from across their vassal systems joined them. Yet even combined, they could not hold back the human storm. Humanity fought with a unity that no alien power could match. Every fleet, every colony, every soldier was part of the same purpose: vengeance. The fire of Earth spread wider. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as battles burned across nebulae and asteroid fields. Dravari admirals who once mocked humanity now begged for reinforcements. Their people who once laughed at Earth now hid in fear as Terran warships appeared in their skies. On the bridge of the Liberty's flame, Admiral Marcus Hale sent a message across every frequency, a warning that echoed through the galaxy. "This is the price of cruelty. This is the price of arrogance. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not kneel. And as Keller Prime's broken cities smoldered under the black sky, and as Dravari ships fled into the void with nowhere to run, the galaxy finally began to understand. This was no passing war. This was the wrath of Earth carried on fire and steel, and it was only growing stronger. The fires of Keller Prime still smoldered when the Dravari unveiled their greatest weapon. For weeks, human fleets had stormed across their territory, taking system after system, but the Dravari had been waiting. Their secret was not a fleet, it was a moving fortress. A city-sized warship feared even among their own kind. It emerged from the shadows of the Veros Nebula, a colossal structure of black steel and crimson light. The Bloodspire, a fortress so massive that moons had been harvested to build it. Entire civilizations had paid tribute in blood and labor to complete its construction. Now it drifted into battle, larger than even Earth's dreadnoughts, bristling with weapons that lit the void like a storm. On the bridge of the Iron Valor, Captain Ethan Ward stared at the incoming readings. His crew gasped as the image of the fortress filled the holodisplay. "By God," whispered one officer. "It's the size of a continent." Ward's jaw tightened. "Then we break a continent today," he answered. The Bloodspire moved slowly, but every cannon on its hull unleashed destruction. Plasma beams cut through Terran destroyers as if they were glass. Carriers burst into fireballs as swarms of enemy drones poured from its launch bays. Within the first hour of battle, dozens of human ships were gone. Commander Sofia Martinez aboard the Starlance maneuvered through the chaos. Her voice was calm but grim as she ordered her crew. "Target the drones, cut off their swarm." Her cruiser's railguns ripped through enemy fighters. But still they came, endless, pouring out of the fortress like blood from a wound that would not close. The Terran fleets fought with fury, but the Bloodspire was not just a warship, was a world of death. Every strike against it was absorbed by layered shields and armor thicker than mountains. Human weapons that had shredded entire fleets now seemed like sparks against a hurricane. Admiral Marcus Hale, commanding from the Liberty's flame, clenched his fists as reports of heavy losses streamed in. His voice thundered across. "Comes, hold the line. Humanity does not run." His words steadied the fleet. But he knew the truth. The Bloodspire was built to crush civilizations, and humanity had never faced such a monster. In the chaos, the dreadnought Eternal Resolve advanced. Its captain, Helena Brooks, had been silent. Until now, her ship was humanity's oldest surviving dreadnought. Scarred from decades of hidden testing, inside its core was an experimental weapon never before used in battle. A particle lance powered by energy drawn directly from a star. She looked at her crew, her voice firm. "We may not live through this, but we will end it. Charge the lance." The Eternal Resolve drifted forward, its hull shuddering as energy built within. The fortress turned its weapons toward the dreadnought, unleashing storms of fire. Shields, flared armor, melted, decks burned, but still the ship pressed on. The crew held their stations, bloodied but unbroken, on the Iron Valor. Captain Ward realized what Brooks intended. His heart clenched. "She's going to fire it." He whispered. Sofia Martinez's voice came over comes, raw with emotion. "God help them, but it's the only way." The Eternal Resolve drew closer. Closer, until the Bloodspire filled its view like a mountain of steel. Then the particle lance fired. A beam of pure energy, white-hot and brighter than any sun, tore through space. It struck the fortress dead center, slicing through shields, cutting through armor, piercing layer after layer. The Bloodspire shook, its hull cracking its weapons. Silenced, and then, in an instant, it split apart. Entire sections of the fortress exploded outward. Fragments the size of cities burning into the void. The Terran fleets roared with victory, but their cheers were choked with grief. For the eternal resolve was gone, its hull shattered, its crew lost. The ship had given its life to end the fortress. Humanity had won the battle, but the price was carved into their hearts. Admiral Hale lowered his head, his voice quiet over. Comes, they gave everything so we could live. Remember their names, remember this day. The galaxy trembled at the news. The Dravari's greatest weapon had fallen. Humanity had destroyed the undefeatable, but it was not victory without cost. Hundreds of human ships lay in ruins, thousands of soldiers gone, and yet, not a single Terran survivor spoke of retreat. Instead, they whispered the same vow passed from ship to ship, from world to world, for Daniel Carter, for the eternal resolve, for Earth. And as the wreck of the Bloodspire drifted silently across the stars, the galaxy realized something terrifying: humanity's fury did not break with loss. It only grew sharper, stronger, and more relentless. The tide had turned, and Earth would never be stopped. The ruins of the Bloodspire drifted through the void like a grave marker, its burning wreckage scattering across the nebula. For the Dravari, it had been their pride, their symbol of terror. Now it was nothing but ash, and with it, their will to resist began to collapse. The Terran fleets did not slow. After the fortress fell, humanity pressed harder, pushing deeper into Dravari space. One world after another surrendered, their leaders begging for mercy. But Earth had not forgotten the fire in which Daniel Carter died. The war was not over until judgment was delivered on the bridge of the Iron Valor. Captain Ethan Ward stood with a cold, steady gaze. Reports of victories streamed across his display. Dravari fleets shattered, their armies broken, their colonies taken, yet he did not smile. His voice was flat. We are not here to conquer. We are here to finish what they began, Commander. Sophia Martinez aboard the Starlance directed her ship into the heart of the Dravari home system. Her crew was exhausted, but her voice carried them forward. Remember Keller Prime. Remember the eternal resolve. Remember Daniel Carter. Every shot we fire is for them. The Dravari homeworld loomed ahead, a massive planet wrapped in defenses. Its skies glowed with countless battle stations, its orbit thick with fleets desperate to form a final wall. But they were broken. The Terran dreadnoughts cut through them like blades through paper. Rail slugs tore apart battleships. Torpedoes gutted carriers, and laser arrays carved holes through their defenses. From orbit, human marines landed on the surface, pushing through blackened cities and crumbling fortresses. The Dravari soldiers fought with desperation, but their discipline had cracked. For every charge they made, the Terran Marines answered with steel and fire. For every ambush they attempted, human squads moved with precision, step by step, grinding them down in the great capital tower of Dravari. Prime High Chancellor Dracker raged. His claws tore at the marble walls, his voice a roar of denial. They are only humans. He screamed to his generals. They should have bowed. They should have begged. But even his generals would not meet his gaze. Their fleets had burned, their fortress had fallen. Their empire was collapsing when the Terran soldiers stormed the tower. Dracker and his council were dragged in chains through the streets, the same streets where they had once burned Daniel Carter alive. The people of their world watched in silence, fear etched in every scaled face. No longer did they roar in triumph. No longer did they mock. They only watched, knowing the age of their pride was gone. In orbit, President Laura Kent's voice carried across the galaxy, broadcast from the flagship. Liberty's flame. Humanity did not seek this war, she declared, her eyes blazing with fury and sorrow. We did not seek blood. We did not seek vengeance. But when our diplomat was murdered in fire, when the galaxy mocked our grief, you left us no choice. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not forget. And today's justice is delivered. The Dravari leaders were put on trial. Not burned as they had burned Daniel, but tried openly before the galaxy. Witnesses were brought, evidence displayed, and their crimes spoken aloud for all species to hear. Some called for them to be executed in fire. But President Kent refused. "We are not monsters," she said firmly. "We do not answer cruelty. With cruelty, we answer it with truth. Let the galaxy see who they were and who we are." The trials ended with sentences of life imprisonment. A punishment many thought too merciful, yet in that mercy was power. The galaxy watched humanity burn their enemies in battle, but in victory they showed restraint. And that shook the galaxy more than the battles themselves. In the halls of the United Earth Assembly, leaders stood with heads bowed as the final judgment was passed. The name of Daniel Carter was spoken aloud. His sacrifice had become more than memory. It was the symbol of a people who had been tested in fire and answered with fury. Across alien worlds, whispers spread. Civilizations once loyal to the Dravari now looked to Earth with awe and fear. Some saw humanity as avengers, others as saviors. But all agreed on one truth. Earth had risen, and Earth's justice could not be denied. And as the Terran fleets hung in orbit above a broken empire, their banners reflecting off the stars, the galaxy realized that the fire humanity carried was not only vengeance, it was judgment, a judgment no one could escape. The war was over. The Dravari alliance, once feared across the stars, lay in ruins. Their fleets had burned, their fortresses shattered, their leaders bound in chains. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy looked upon Earth not as a curiosity, not as prey, but as a power that had carved its name in fire. In orbit above Dravari Prime, the Terran fleets hovered in silence, their hulls scarred, their engines battered. Yet their banners flew bright against the stars, the iron. Valor stood at the heart of the formation, her cannons blackened from endless battles, but her crew stood tall. Captain Ethan Ward looked out at the conquered skies and whispered, "Daniel, you were not forgotten on the Starlands." Commander Sofia Martinez sat at her station, exhaustion heavy in her bones, but her eyes gleamed with pride. Her ship had fought in every campaign, from the Orion Expanse to Keller Prime. Now it drifted through victory. She turned to her crew, her voice soft. "The galaxy knows our name now, and it will never forget it." In the United Earth Assembly, President Laura Kent stood before a crowd of billions. Her speech was carried across every human world and broadcast to alien colonies as well. "We did not choose this path," she said, her voice strong. "But when the galaxy tested us, when cruelty burned one of our own alive, humanity stood together and we showed them what we are. We are builders. We are dreamers, but we are also survivors. And if we are pushed to fight, we will fight until the stars themselves fall silent." Her words echoed across the galaxy and in alien halls far from Earth. Leaders listened with unease. Some trembled, some whispered of new alliances. But all of them understood the truth. Earth was no longer a minor world on the edge of the galaxy. Earth had become a power no empire could ignore. On colony worlds, children played in the dirt with toy ships. But no longer were they alien cruisers or Dravari fortresses. They held models of Terran dreadnoughts, their small voices crying out for Earth. In marketplaces across neutral systems, traders spoke of human courage. Some spoke with awe, others with fear, but always with respect. Humanity's fury had left a scar across the stars, and that scar would never fade. At the memorial on Earth, a statue of Daniel Carter was raised. His figure stood tall, carved in stone, his eyes lifted to the stars. Around his feet were the names of those who had fallen in the War of the Marines. The pilots, the crews of the Eternal Resolve who had given everything. Families gathered beneath the monument, laying flowers, whispering thanks. For them, this victory was not just about power. It was about sacrifice, about memory, about proving. That humanity's spirit could not be broken. Captain Ward and Commander Martinez stood side by side at the memorial, both still wearing their uniforms. Both bore the weight of battles that would never leave them. Sophia looked at the endless rows of names and said quietly, "We paid for this dawn in blood." Ward nodded, his gaze firm, "And we will guard it, so no one dares take it from us again." The fleets did not disband. Instead, they became the shield of the new Terran alliance. The dreadnoughts patrolled not just Sol, but the lanes of neutral worlds. Humanity had not come to enslave or conquer, but their presence reminded everyone that cruelty would no longer go unanswered. The galaxy, once vast and untouchable, now looked smaller under the shadow of Earth's fury. Treaties were signed under Terran oversight. Former enemies bowed their heads, and whispers of rebellion against tyrants began to rise across alien empires. Earth had not just avenged its diplomat, had lit a fire of change across the stars. And as the Terran fleets sailed home, their banners shining, their cannons silent at last, humanity knew this was only the beginning. They were no longer the newcomers, no longer the ignored. From this dawn onward, the galaxy would remember the day Earth rose in fire, the day humanity showed its full fury, and somewhere, in the quiet night of Earth, under the stars Daniel Carter once dreamed of, the wind carried a whisper that seemed to come from the fallen diplomat himself. We endured, we rose, and now humanity leads the dawn.